Thank you to our amazing presenting sponsors. You keep fueling our fire, igniting our passion. Without you, we wouldn't be able to continue and sustain this national voice for our nonprofit community. So thank you. And for those of you that may be streaming on Roku, we welcome you. Appreciate being in your household. And we've got more tricks up our sleeve, but we are on Roku now. Amazing, service and opportunity there. So if you have one of those smartphones with our remotes with Roku, go ahead and say the nonprofit show and we'll pop up larger than life on your television.
Yeah, it's a little shocking.
Yeah, it's a little shocking.
It's a little shocking.
As always, Miss Julia Patrick is amazing, and she's here today, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. Myself, Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And today's guest is Jeb Banner. Thank you for joining us. We are so thrilled to have you, CEO and founder of Boardable. And this is something I'm going to tell on you, Julia. You bring up this conversation a lot. So I know you are a pet guest of Julia's because she really wants to drive this home. And I'm so glad to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jarrett. Thank you, Julia. I'm really happy to be here and excited to talk with you and maybe answer some questions.
Absolutely.
So I think I read on your website that you started Boardable, and I'm going to have you explain to us what it is. But you started it because you were a board member and frustrated or seeing problems, right?
Yeah, it was actually a kind of a confluence of a few things. I had started two nonprofits at that point. Musical Family Tree, which serves independent musicians in Indiana, and then the Speakeasy, which serves the entrepreneurial community, was the first co-working space in the state, and served as board chair of both those nonprofits. And then I was also serving on a number of other boards. And my previous company, which is a creative agency called Smallbox, was working with nonprofits. That was our primary customer, and one of them was United Way of Central Indiana, and they came to us and said, "Hey, can you build us a board portal?" And we built websites with board portals, logins on the back end, like a WordPress plugin kind of thing. And we spec'd it out with them, and they really needed something much more robust. And we realized that they didn't really need a tool, they needed a product. They needed something that was shared costs with other nonprofits. And we looked at the market, and everything out there was built for businesses. It was expensive, very expensive, often $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a year. And we said, hey, there's an opportunity to build something that really helps nonprofits like us that are struggling managing their boards with, we call it digital duct tape, email, Google Calendar, Outlook, Doodle polls, Dropbox, all those things. They get you through the board meeting. They create a real mess down the road. And I saw that. As a board chair, at one point I couldn't find our bylaws. I was like, who has the bylaws? Right. There was no place. It was in somebody's inbox, we built it out of our own pain, and then working with a local nonprofit, and they became customer zero, if you will. And that was late 2016. And then by 2017, I was starting to transition out of my other job, and my wife took that job, actually running the agency, which is a whole nother story. We actually did a podcast about that experience. It was pretty interesting.
Okay, well, you are my hero.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Jared about this offline for years. I get asked to be on a lot of boards. Unfortunately, I decline quite a few. But my first question I always ask is, do you have a board liaison? Mm-hmm. And do you use a board portal?
Right.
And if they look at me like, I don't know what you're saying, it says to me all these other things.
Yeah.
All these other things that they can't be an effective steward of that mission as a board if they don't have those tools in place. Yeah. And I mean, it's such a big deal for me. I can't even tell you how it's just, I think it is at the core of operational structure, that if you don't have this, even just this mentality, that you can't move forward as efficiently as you need to.
Yeah, I think a lot of nonprofits struggle to make investments in technology. It's something where they're like, hey, does it have a real direct impact on the mission? Like how's it increasing our impact? Because they look so closely at every dollar they spend, as they should,
Mhm.
in terms of how it increases their impact.
Yeah.
And so when you look at, obviously that's part of the problem, was these solutions were so expensive. And
Mhm.
then they would build these plugins into their website or do a homegrown thing, and the board members, they wouldn't use it. And so they ended up just emailing everything all over again, printing everything out all over again. And they got, a lot of nonprofits just were like, why are we bothering with this? Because we can't change the behavior of the board. And the behavioral change, obviously, no software is going to change that entirely.
Mhm.
That requires, the staff and the board liaison to have some persistence and to
Mhm.
stick with it. And that's hard. That's hard. I get that. But, give them something that's easy to use, that integrates with their calendar, their inbox. So they're using Boardable even when they don't know they're using Boardable, in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And then gives that board administrator, that liaison, a tool to really make sure that, hey, if there's ever a question, all they have to do is say it's in Boardable. You
Right.
know,
Right.
yes, that report's in Boardable, et cetera.
Well, I want to say too, for many nonprofits and the board, which are fiduciary agents of the nonprofit, right? They may not see the investment or the impact immediately on the program, but I want to go to bat and say you will certainly see the impact when it comes to the institutional knowledge and sustainability of the
Mm-hmm.
organization. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've shown up as an interim executive director for a nonprofit and I asked to see previous board meeting minutes, previous
Mm-hmm.
agendas, and it is piecemealed and it is that duct tape. It's ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
it's a
that
mess.
tells me that their institutional knowledge is not intact. So when that bus shows up that we all talk about in the nonprofit sector, like, there really is no binder or documents, and all of that. So, I see a huge issue and want to go to bat. Want all of you watching live as well as recording. This is an investment that is your future, right? It is truly your future. And why would you not invest in that?
I need to hire you guys. You got to come sell for me. This is.
Well, I'm telling you, I have worked
I
with
believe it too. It's great.
it's such a huge thing. I mean, I was sitting here thinking about institutional knowledge, and
Yeah.
I was working with a nonprofit that is a cultural institution that I wasn't really familiar with, but they were 100 years old in the Western United States, which for a cultural institution in
It's
the
a
Western United
long
States
time.
to be 100 years old is amazing. Well, they had lost so when they started, they didn't have bylaws. And then in the 30s, the bylaws were like totally inappropriate because I think it mentioned you had to be a white woman
Right.
to receive their service or some horrible thing.
That's not good.
Smoking a cigar.
Yeah,
Get rid of
bless
that.
their hearts. And so they had self-shame, they had self-awareness, and they
Yeah.
kept, going with the times. And then they had to like straighten up and fly right because they were getting a big grant. And they had lost all that documentation. They couldn't find it, nothing. And they had to go to court to say, we're going to reinstitute our bylaws and our articles of incorporation and everything. We don't want to lose, 100 years of service or history. And we're going to have to kind of set this up. And so they had to actually get a legal judgment that allowed them to kind of restart or redocument in a way. And
Yeah.
I think what I wanted to talk to you about, Jeb, is that I feel like this is a lot of self-protection in a way too, because nonprofits do get sued.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're using a board portal, it seems to me that then they can go back and they can demonstrate where all this, management has occurred, the votes, all of
who
that.
voted what, who was in attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's that governance side, that continuity side of it. That's the pain I was experiencing as a board chair and seeing on the nonprofits I was serving. Coming into a nonprofit and serving on the board, it was like there was no picture of the past, right? there was I was piecing it together by just talking to people, and so to be able to go back and look at those meetings and see the minutes and see the documents and just know what hey, I'm one of the things we do when you join a new committee. So say I'm on the board, I go to the executive committee. Now I have access to all of that. I didn't have access on the board because it wasn't appropriate, but when I'm on the executive committee, I then have that access, and that's hugely helpful. And I'm chairing 2 nonprofit boards right now,
Wow.
and I just find it really important to use the product with like I've become like this big even bigger believer in it. These 2 nonprofits I'm chairing right now, both of them are the younger, more startup, scrappy side of things. And
Well,
man, I'm so glad we're doing it from day one. It's great.
that's exactly where I would love to go. Is Boardable appropriate for every size organization? When do you start it? Is there a certain threshold in which you're like, we're ready for Boardable, or another, platform? You just said, these are some of the scrappier ones. And so talk to us about that platform and
Yeah.
really having this, this development at an early stage.
Yeah, I honestly think there's tremendous value in using Boardable from the first day, the first board meeting, put it that way, because then you've got really the full history of the board in one place, and you can export data from Boardable as well, or forget about Boardable, using any board portal or tool from day one, because as you change, the board is meant to be evergreen. That initial board, it should not really, there shouldn't be anybody from that board there in 5 or certainly not 10 years. You need to
Can you say that again, please?
I don't serve on the board. Those 2 nonprofits I serve on, I'm not on either board, and that's intentional. I think with the board, you should always think about when you're rotating off. I'm not a big fan of people being lifelong board members unless it's a business. A business makes more sense because it's a family business, whatever it might be. But in a nonprofit, um, that negative space that you create when you leave as a leader allows other people to come in and fill that, and it actually really I think creates a much better foundation for the nonprofit, because I'm still committed in a lot of ways to that nonprofit, and if things get tough, I'm going to step up. But now you have a bunch of other people committed too, so creating those board seats, opening them up, is really important, and keeping everything in one place allows those new board members to come in and get up to speed and have context, understand why decisions are made, understand the culture of the board, and the history. Without that, they're really flying blind, usually for about 6 to 12 months, and that's not good. That's not
No,
good at
it's
all.
constantly relearning, constantly ramping up. If I could come in as an interim, CEO and look at Boardable and just, spend, I'm sure, a lot of time there, especially if they've been using it for a while. Wow, what a gift that would be, instead
Yeah,
of going
yeah,
back to talk to past board members, going back to talk to the founder if he, she, or they are still involved, going
yeah,
back to talk to, just like so many people. So that really houses that institutional knowledge, and we talked about how nonprofits don't naturally, stereotypically, they don't naturally take on technology, and especially in investments in technology. But what has this pandemic done, and how has
yeah,
Boardable helped during this specific time?
yeah. It's been an interesting time. I mean, gosh. So when the pandemic hit in mid-March, we shifted pretty quickly we had a 14-day trial, we went to a 90-day trial.
Oh, smart.
So we
Yeah.
just said, hey, I mean, it was really just saying, look, we're going to give the nonprofit world a virtual hug.
Mhm.
We're in 25 countries. We're all over the world, mostly in English-speaking markets. And we just wanted to make sure nonprofits, we didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know that 5 months later, we'd still be where we are,
Still be
unfortunately.
here.
Right. And so he said, well, we were thinking 3 months, like, okay.
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was a big hit to our revenue in the second quarter, but we were okay with that. Our board supported it. Of course, we used Boardable too. And what we saw and what we've seen is we saw usage of the product spike about 50% almost immediately when the pandemic hit, because boards were meeting more often. They're just having to convene to navigate the crisis. That's come down a little bit, but it's still above where it was before. And I'm talking about existing customers.
Yeah.
And we have over 1,000 customers to give you a little context. So, pretty good sample set. Then when the pandemic sort of settled in, if you will, we just saw that the need was different than it was before. There's need for video conferencing. And there's need for e-signatures. So we've built both of those into the product, and we've built an experience that's very different than Zoom. Zoom is great, you use it all the time, but when you think about a board meeting, what you really want is you want to have your agenda there. You want to have your documents there. You want to be able to take minutes right here in the same experience. So we built a one-screen experience that gives you everything. You have the video and everything you have with the Zoom, but it's in a browser and it's all on one screen. And we launched that a few weeks ago, and we think it's pretty innovative, and we don't see anybody else doing it. But we built that because that's what we saw the nonprofits needing. They needed to be able to have a board meeting where they're all on the same page. They're all looking at the same thing and talking about the same thing, and not jumping in between screens so much, which is, it's frustrating. That's sort of another digital duct tape thing. So we had to change the product. And we had to change it pretty quickly. That's always a little scary, but it's paid off. Our customers are responding well to it, and it's fun to go fast like that too, and
well, good for you for, being in the fire and responding. Because I think now more than ever, there are going to be nonprofits that are going to have their feet held to the fire when it comes out 6 months down the road, 12 months, 24 months, about some of these decisions that they made during the pandemic that haven't necessarily been the best for their structure. And so I think it's even more important for a nonprofit to actually have that record of how a decision was made, what that process was, because I just think there's going to be a lot of litigation that comes down the pike. I really do. I mean, I hate to be so negative, but it just seems to me that there's going to be so much failure that there'll be a lot of finger pointing. And so if your structure can come back and say, well, these are the facts that we used at the time, this is how we made our decision, I think it's going to be healthier for everyone.
Yeah, we believe so too. We've certainly seen an increase in demand. There's a lot of people needing Boardable or board software right now. I think a lot of people are just seeing the need to have that collaboration platform along with that archival functionality. So that's been, it's been good for us. I mean, it's a weird thing to benefit from a pandemic. It's not something you wake up in the morning and get excited about, because this is something that's killing people, and it's something that I've known a lot of people in my life who've had it, and it's a devastating disease. But we also we are very mission driven. We're here to solve a real problem for these nonprofits, and it's our team is very committed to that.
That's great. Hey, I'm going to ask the question that I'm sure many viewers and maybe archive viewers will be wanting to ask you. Is the trial still available?
We've gone to 30, so we went
30.
from 90 to 30.
Okay.
We did that in July, so we made the switch in July. We did the 90 for a little over 3 months, and then we realized that things had settled in a little bit. We went to 30. So yes, it's still available. You can go to the website right now, and within 2 seconds, 3 seconds maybe, you can be in your own instance of Boardable, using it, no credit card, and just start playing with it and give it a try. Try out the video feature, etc.
Let me ask you this: do you need a board liaison to use a board portal such as Boardable, or could somebody from the board do this, or what does that look like?
Yeah, you need somebody in that role. You don't necessarily need somebody who's an administrative assistant who's full-time as a board liaison. For instance, the one of the ones I'm chairing right now, I am acting as that liaison. I am managing the board through Boardable,
Okay.
It's a startup nonprofit focused on saving music venues, which are being very badly impacted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we're scrappy and we're going fast. So we just hired our first part-time employee yesterday. So
That's,
yeah, it's more about the role. I think as long as someone's in that role, it could be a board chair, it could be the secretary, it could be the executive director at a small nonprofit. We see that quite a bit. It's the role that matters.
And then in terms of, we believe it or not, we don't have much time left, but in terms of looking at investing in any type of board software, what does that look like? And is this based on like how many people are on your board or your budgets, or what are some of the things that we should be thinking about when we look at making these investments?
Yeah, we price by the user. So
Okay.
every plan, we have two plans. An Essentials, it starts at $79, and it's got your basic product, and then the Professional, which has a lot of more advanced features like e-signatures and some
Okay.
board book builder tools like that.
Okay.
And they both come with 10 users to start, and then you can buy packs of 5 after that. We're the only board software company on the US market that has pricing publicly. So it's a little hard sometimes to know how some price. Some price by how many boards you have, which can be like committees. They don't price by users as much.
Okay.
That's a different way of pricing. We actually price, very much by a base package plus users.
Okay.
So most boards, they can, if they're in the 10 to 20 range, be at or below $100 a month.
Okay.
great.
When we're offline, I'm going to email a connection, an introduction to somebody, because I just got a call from an organization asking for some referrals on board, portals.
Sure.
And,
Happy to
yeah,
talk.
because it's I'm like, oh my gosh, Jarrett is always like exhausted by me going off on this.
This is her soapbox. This is
Yeah.
her thing.
And I have like toned it down for the show, I gotta say.
Well, we need to have you come
feel
do a
like-
webinar with us. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Sign her up. She's all about it.
I actually do work with the Credit Union Executive Society, and they hire me to work with their board liaisons, which, they're financial in fintech. You have compliance issues.
Oh, for sure.
That are heavy duty. And so board liaison work it has a whole nother component, and they are nonprofits, but in addition to that, it's such a tricky deal. And wow, well, I'm really thrilled that you would come on and talk with us.
Of course, happy to do it.
Because it's such a cool thing to get your framework, to know that you were frustrated, and so you took your background knowledge in the tech side and applied it to this. I love that. I think it's amazing. So our time has blown by today. I want to thank my co-host, Jarrett Ransom. I'm Julia Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. You've been joining us on the Nonprofit Show. Here's Jeb's information, Boardable. I think that we were given your name by Stephen Shattuck, who's going to be on tomorrow. He's written a new book. And if I'm not mistaken, he had given us your name, maybe even during one of our shows. So check them out. Boardable, super cool. It is a tool you must have.
I'm going to sign up today. I'm onboarding a new interim executive, or I'm onboarding a new client as their interim executive director. And let's say they're scrappy too, Jeb, and they could really benefit from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the trial. We want them to see the value, and we can offer a demo for them as well.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, really, really neat. Hey, everybody, I just want to remind you, if you're joining us from Roku, 39 million friends of the show, as we like to call you, you can speak into your smart remote or your smart speaker. You can actually say the Nonprofit Show or even the word nonprofit, and you're going to start to see our episode stuff. It's like super cool. So Roku, thank you for working with us. It's been really exciting. And I want to thank our team, especially our producer, executive producer. He got a promotion. Yes. Kevin Pace. We want to thank our sponsors. Without you, we would not be here. So thank you very, very much. And this has been the Nonprofit Show. Jeb, thank you. You warmed my cold black heart today. Because Man,
Thank you, Julia.
this
Appreciate
is
that.
what we need. It's been a lot of fun. Again, join us tomorrow. We've got a lot of great things cooking, and we always appreciate your time and attention. As we end every show, we like to say, stay well so you can do well. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thanks, Jeb.
Thanks, Jarrett.